right, let's rock. We already talked for 24 minutes.
We did. Well, and this is a little pre-talk. But hello and welcome to episode 238 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And Jason and I have just been talking for 24 minutes to get ready for the show. Hard to believe that there's this much that went on this week. It's been a crazy week. Not just on the field, but off the field. And let's start off the field.
Oh, you want to start off the field? Okay.
Let's start off the field. So let's go with Urban Myer first.
The sillier one, yes.
And I had Urban Myer in class, and I always had a lot of respect for him and thought he's a good guy, a smart guy. But I think once you've been bulletproof for a long time, and people just throwing stuff at you and then everything, I think you get, like you and I talked offline, that feeling of infallibility.
Yeah.
That, you can do whatever and it doesn't matter because it's not a big deal. But that was this, if you want to say it was soft porn, I would not argue with it.
No.
I mean, I've seen, it was like I was watching Cinemax. I mean, and I can't believe that people with him didn't stop it. That's what surprised me, I think. Say, Urban, this doesn't look good, can stop this. Or, when you see somebody filming it, go over and take the camera. Or ask them to delete the film.
That's the part I was
do it, but
yeah.
You got to intervene. But I mean, there's just, you tell people now all the time that everybody's a reporter. Anybody with a cell phone is a reporter. Anybody can post anything, and you won't even know. So why put yourself in a bad situation? That was a bad situation.
And that's advice for you and me, who nobody knows who we are.
Yeah.
People aren't going out like, oh, that's Jason, let me go film him, just in case something happens. Whereas you're Urban Myer, people are taking pictures of you, people are filming you just because you're Urban Myer.
Agreed.
Especially if you're at Urban Meyer's restaurant during the NFL season.
And then you come back and you lose the next game.
Yeah.
So now you're 0-5.
And I mean,
the story's not going away.
No. And, it's been brought back up. You started out, you hired the racist coach from Iowa. And it's like, it just seemed like a silly move to start with,
And now you're going to London.
Although, to be fair, London games, you just throw them out the window because nobody knows what the hell's going to happen.
So, as an aside on this, I tweeted out yesterday, I said, do we really need to keep sending the worst teams in the NFL to London? If you really want to grow the game and get European TV audiences and maybe have a team over there and get people excited about it and sell a lot of merch, do you really want to keep sending teams that are 1-3 and 1-4 and 0-5? Is that really your best interest in doing it? And so I said, well, those other teams don't want to give up a home gate. I can understand that. But you can't tell me that you couldn't you could send the Steelers and the Cowboys or the Cowboys and the Packers and just pay those two owners a shit ton of money to make up for the game they lost at home. And it's fine. I just don't see why it always has to be the worst teams.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. And it does seem like it's not like the NFL isn't making,
So my comparison was, would we send Ted Lasso and Richmond AC to the United States to promote soccer?
Well, yes, because people love Ted Lasso.
But they were relegated, so they weren't great soccer teams. It would come out. So that's my comparative point.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
I don't think it's good business. I mean, granted, I watch people wearing Jets jerseys and being all excited and really into the game, and people with their faces painted black and red for the Falcons. And so I saw they're really into it, but it's an event. It's not really a game. It's not really something you follow.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's an event, and, you look at the way they handle, a European football match, and they do the face painting and the cheering and the screaming, so that's just already part of what their thing is. So they'll get behind these teams, but like you said, you're not sending them a product where they're going to go home and be like, I just saw the most incredible football game ever. Like if they had watched, the Browns Chargers.
Trent from the Independent on Ted Lasso will interview Urban Myer this week and ask him about the scandal.
Well, he gave his typical Urban Myer, very arrogant, non-apology apology. So.
Yep. So, what do you think about the John Gruden thing?
I mean, he's doing the justification, I have black friends, I call people this all the time that aren't black kind of thing, which just,
And he said he was referring to the lips as people that lie a lot.
yeah. And that's a common phrase in the Gruden home. So, I mean,
I mean, again, it's something happened 10 years ago, but it just shows you the life of something, right? So for 10 years, that thing was sleeping. It was dormant. And now somebody looks for something and finds it, and it's out there.
yeah.
And it makes it tough for him to, he was very uncomfortable because everybody kept asking him about it. And no matter what he said, he apologized like 10 times. You were never going to get past it.
It's true. And then I would say, my initial response in all those situations is just be like, I said something ignorant at the time. I was trying to hurt somebody. I said something very hurtful that was, obviously, whatever. But I've seen that apology too. And I kind of feel like we've also reached a point in society where there probably isn't an apology that works. So
no, we're past the point where you can say, mea culpa, my bad. I'm sorry, because you see so many apologies that aren't genuine.
yeah, and it seems like the only people that ever finally do accept a genuine apology are people that have already been taken down from not. I mean, it's just everybody's on high for a while. I mean, again, it's an ignorant thing to say, and he, worse for him is he's in year 4 or 5 of this 10-year contract.
Yep.
And this year started out they were 3-0, and now I think they're 3-2.
3-2.
And they don't look good.
No, they don't.
They look right back to being the sort of mediocre Raiders team that we've seen for a while now.
So a year from now, is Urban Meyer coaching the Jaguars?
I don't see any way possible.
Neither do I. Is John Gruden coaching the Raiders a year from now?
I would like to know the details of that contract, but I feel like no would probably be the proper answer.
The funny thing is, I'm going to say yes on that one for the reason you just raised. I don't know if the contract lets you get rid of him.
Yeah, I know it was like, wasn't it $10 million a year for 10 years or something?
It's ridiculous.
It's an insane contract for anybody. I mean, just even, when you listen to even some great successful coaches like Phil Jackson simply saying that, no matter how effective of a coach you are, after a certain amount of years, you just become ineffective to the people around you. They don't want to hear your voice. They don't want to see your part. You need sort of that coaching change from time to time. Like, it's wonderful when the Steelers have only had 3 coaches since 1950 or whatever.
69.
69, yeah. But I mean, sometimes the change is, a necessary change. Yeah, Urban Meyer, though, I mean, you look at the way he's exited the other 2 programs where, I want to spend more time with my family, and then he's coaching another, he does half a year at ESPN, then he's back, and supposedly was hunting for a job the entire time. So, I mean, you just don't know with that guy. If he even,
No, you really don't.
And again, Nick Saban, has been very honest about, when he came to the pros, like it wasn't the experience he thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You're not. It doesn't matter how good of a recruiter you are. It's not. You're not going to have the best players on your team.
No, you're not.
And
he was smart to get out and go back.
Yeah.
And he happened to go into the perfect situation for him.
Couldn't be better. And Urban Meyer's already obviously had success at Utah, Florida, Ohio State. I mean, he sampled the pros, and maybe it's just not for him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can stick with the big week in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, like the most enjoyable game I watched was the Chargers and the Browns because when Herbert was coming out, I didn't think he was that great because I wasn't impressed with his senior year at Oregon.
No.
And I was totally wrong.
So
the guy I'm seeing now, I didn't see at Oregon. But again, I guess maybe the team he had at Oregon wasn't up to the abilities and talents he had.
Well, they said, that he had a different offensive coordinator. They had a lot of injuries that year, different skill players. And they said, remember one of the knocks on him is that he doesn't immediately strike you as the guy in the room everybody's drawn to. They always talk about that, like when, Justin Fields walks in a room, everybody wants to talk to Justin Fields. And they said that Herbert is more of a slow burn sort of guy. Like he just doesn't have that large of a life personality that you're like, oh. But he looks phenomenal. And you asked me offline, if I was starting my franchise today, who would I take as my quarterback? And as much as I want to just say Mahomes, I mean, Herbert is in the conversation.
No question. I mean, he looks unbelievable for 23 years old.
He can make all the throws. He's athletic enough that, like on that 10-yard touchdown run that he ran out the defense, like when he needs to run, he can run. He seems, like they talked about, Montana just being calm and cool and collected in the pocket. And Herbert seems to be that way. Like he seems to move at just his own pace.
And the growth between last year and this year is the games that they lost last year, they lost in the fourth quarter. And this year they're winning games in the fourth quarter. So that's his growth and development.
It is. Now they did get lucky on that pass interference call because I don't know if that would have technically been, it didn't look very pass interference to me, but I mean, the game is always going to go that way. You're going to get some calls, you're not going to get others. There's not much you can do about it.
Well, if I'm the Chargers, I like my chances, but I'm probably looking for a new kicker this week.
Yeah. There's a lot of, we'll get to the other game too, but this, probably the second biggest game involved the other quarterback we're talking about, Mahomes, who is now 2-3 for the year.
2-3.
Looking up at last in the division.
And again, I'm drawn to the conversation we had when we were picking. And we picked our rank order. And I remember both of us said, but it could be anybody. Whoever we said was fourth could be first. Whoever we said was third could be first. Whoever we said was second could be first. And that's how that division is turning out.
I didn't picture a scenario where the Chiefs were not at least part. I could
No,
have
I didn't
forced.
either. I had the Chiefs winning.
Yeah.
And my debate was who's going to be second, the Cardinals or the Rams.
The Chiefs are just, they're
I'm
terrible.
sorry, I'm in two different divisions again as usual.
But the Chiefs are a sieve on defense.
Yeah, I think I had the Chiefs as a lock.
Yeah.
I didn't debate that at all. And we had Buffalo as a lock too.
And you look at the Chiefs, unfortunately for my fantasy team, he got hurt, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not turn out to be that extra piece on offense that put them over the top. Their offensive line continues to be shaky. And, it's Tyreek Hill and it's Kelsey, and that's pretty much what you got. And they're mistake prone and terrible on defense.
Yeah, and they've had some injuries too, and their injuries have been costly.
They have been.
And Josh Gordon was playing last night already.
Which, again, you could argue whether or not you'd give somebody a 7th or 8th chance as far as that goes. But between Hardman and Pringle and Watkins, all the different guys they've had in there, you figure the Chiefs wouldn't even be needing to roll the dice on a 30-year-old Josh Gordon who hasn't done anything in the league in 6 years to add extra pop to your offense. But here they are. And the Bills on the other side, looked really good.
Okay, talk about the Bills.
They lost to the Steelers in week 1, and, you could argue that wasn't the best, you had a couple missed touchdowns, you had the block punt, but they still lost to the Steelers. But now they're 4-0. Josh Allen seems to be regaining form. They've got enough guys on offense and defense to make plays. I think it really comes down to, they don't have a consistent running game that's not Josh Allen, but that might be enough.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just you throw those short passes and that becomes your running game.
And if we're now looking at, at least in the AFC, the sort of the leaders in the clubhouse, we'll see what the Ravens do tonight. But if it comes to be playing in January, if you're playing a home playoff game in San Diego, or Los Angeles, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying San Diego, but the Los Angeles Chargers, or in Buffalo, that's going to be a big, both teams are 4-1 right now, so every game's going to count, because I don't think the Los Angeles Chargers want to go play in Buffalo.
No. I don't think anybody wants to go play in Buffalo in January.
No. Which could be a big home advantage for Buffalo.
Yeah, that's just not a good idea. It's not where you want to be.
No.
I'll go NFC West for a minute because I just keep talking about that division. That division is just totally blowing my mind.
Well, to get the 5-0 Arizona Cardinals.
Who I thought were going to be better than third, but I just didn't know how good they were going to be. And I thought the 49ers would be better than they are, and they're not. And I thought the Rams could possibly dominate the division, and they haven't.
No. They looked like they were those first couple weeks out of the gate, and then not anymore.
No. I mean, you swore they were going to just run away with it all.
And I mean, it's clear watching him, and it seemed pretty clear when you watched the fact that they kept Jimmy G, despite probably having a lot of trade offers, that Trey Lance just isn't ready.
No.
I mean, he looks very, very raw. And, a year from now, 2 years from now, who knows? Maybe he'll be, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. But right now, he's a liability on the field for him.
No doubt. Right? He's just not ready.
No.
And, you traded up. You traded up for what he's going to be, not what he is.
Yeah. And you traded up for someone that turned 21 before the season, that played in one football game in college last year.
Yeah.
From a small school to begin with. So.
It's too early. It's too early to say what he's going to be or what he's not going to be.
Yeah. I mean, you do see the occasional flash. You see the arm strength and you see the running ability, which is, at the very least, when you're watching a young player, you want to at least see those, that play where you're like, oh my God, this guy, he could be a star. And then I guess, as long as we're going to stay in the contender talk, how about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? Well, again, really weak division.
Yeah.
And we thought Washington was going to be with their defense, and Washington's defense hasn't shown up.
No, but I mean,
in the words of the immortal Herm Edwards, the Giants are who we thought they are.
Yeah, it's tough though, because Daniel Jones was finally starting to play decent, and that concussion was tough to watch yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
Like, you don't want to see somebody get up and stumble around. That's just not
that's
great.
a serious concussion.
That's a serious concussion. And, if you're a Giants fan, I mean, obviously it sucks. And if you're the Giants organization, here's a guy that you're trying to make your decision on, can this guy be the guy? And it looked like he was kind of putting it together a little bit these last few weeks. And then Kadarius Toney, who played an amazing game yesterday until he tried to punch the helmet and got thrown out. But,
yeah.
I would assume Daniel Jones is gone for at least 2 games.
Well, I think he's out for this next week for sure.
For sure.
And then we'll have to see. But yeah, it could easily be 2 games.
But I mean,
that's when you see somebody stumble like that, that's the concussion that that's the real deal. That's a heavy duty concussion.
That's a very scary concussion, yeah.
And then the Eagles are who they are, trying to find themselves.
Yeah, and they're in that weird position where they have a young quarterback, but it doesn't sound like the organization is exactly sold on him.
No, it's interesting. Jalen Hurst and Tua are probably 2 of the 3 or 4 most controversial quarterbacks right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously on our show, if anyone listens, I mean, I predicted, I was all in for Tua. I thought he was going to have a really big year. I thought, I gave him last year, the offense wasn't really right for him. He was coming off the hip injury, but when he was healthy, he didn't look good. And he's out at least another 2 weeks for, the rib injury. And I know rib injuries are... People get hurt. It's professional football. It's giant men hitting each other, going really fast. But, even if, they could have had Herbert and took Tua instead,
Yeah. But you wouldn't have, because all the scouting reports said this is who you want.
I mean, from the beginning of the season, it was who's going to... It was the tank for Tua. Like, I know people love alliteration, and it sounds better than... I don't know what you would even say for Herbert, but, Tua was like, a more athletic Drew Brees is what people were saying. An all-time great quarterback. I mean, that was just,
Yeah.
It seemed, and the Dolphins were able to trade down a spot, still get him. It seemed like the absolute no-brainer, and now they're not looking very good.
It's just crazy.
But in weird news, our Steelers are now 3-2. Oh no, 2-3, 2-3. But coming off 2, But they got the win at home yesterday. They ran the football
very effectively.
Very
the
effectively.
First 100-yard rusher in I don't know how many games
Since James Conner. And and speaking of spark that we saw with Trey Lance, Najee Harris has that spark. That guy is an absolute stud.
Well, I was very happy with that pick when they made that pick.
Yeah.
And I will remain very happy with that pick. I think he could end up being, taking the bus into account. I mean, he could be that caliber.
I mean, he has, as far as his tool set, like, he's got the whole bag like a Le'Veon Bell. Like, he can receive, you can spread him out wide. He had 14 catches in one game.
He's the leading receiver among NFL running backs.
Yeah. Now, granted, those are dump offs on 4th and 5 for 2 yards, but he's still catching the football.
Yeah.
So that's just fine.
Well, let's talk college football.
Well, I mean, I guess we got to start with the number 1 team in the country losing to an unranked opponent for the first time in 100 games.
And losing to one of his former assistants for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, I was watching that game, and Texas A&M hadn't done anything at all in the second half. They had that early lead, and it looked like with 3 minutes to go, I switched it off and went to something else. And I was shocked that they'd scored a touchdown and a field goal.
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing anything. I mean, I watched, they were going 3 and out consistently. But it's interesting. I mean, so all the talk now is, the winner of Alabama-Georgia will get in the football playoff. They'll have a spot for sure. But if Alabama loses, they won't get in with 2 losses.
And that's just, that's like the Chiefs being pat.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. I mean, although if teams keep losing, maybe a 2-loss Alabama team will get it.
Well, it was good news for Cincinnati. Let's put it that way.
It's very good news for Cincinnati. Iowa with the big not upset, but they acted like they ran curve rush the field.
Yeah, they don't win that game. Penn State's quarterback doesn't get hurt. They don't win that game. I don't think there's any way.
No.
Penn State was winning 17-3, and that quarterback was moving the ball. You say whatever you want. They were winning 17-3 despite the fact they'd thrown a couple interceptions. So Penn State's defense was playing well, and they weren't on the field every play like they were after the quarterback got hurt. So that was just a sad situation.
It really was. But now we could have I assume whoever's in the playoffs this year, at least 2 or 3 of those teams nobody will have predicted have been in there. There won't be any Vegas. I don't know how you bet which teams go in the playoffs, but I have very doubt that most people will have those teams.
Well, my most fun college game I watched all weekend was Mississippi, Arkansas. And it came down to the last play of the game. Arkansas scored to be 1 point behind with no time on the clock. And I applaud the coach because they went for 2 to try and win the game. And both teams had 1 loss, and they're in the ACC West.
Yeah.
You're in with Alabama and everything, and you're probably not. You're probably looking at optimistically a New Year's Day bowl at best, but not the CFP.
And honestly, when you look at
if you win it,
yeah.
So what I liked about it is he went for it. They didn't make it, and they really didn't drop in the polls because people appreciated the fact that the coach had confidence in his squad, rolled the dice, and they played really well.
Yeah, and if you look at the way college overtime is done, you have a chance to win the game almost in the, I know it's only 1 down as opposed to getting the ball at the 25, but you're going to have to get the ball in the end zone at some point, and you're right at the, it's, you're what, the 6 yard, whatever it is, so, it makes as much sense as anything else.
I don't know if I could have done it. I wouldn't have wanted to. I didn't want to lose that game, but I respected the fact that he didn't think that way. That he tried to win it.
Yeah.
But it was a great game, and I loved watching it. And that quarterback for Arkansas is like Cam Newton 2.0, and the Ole Miss quarterback, Coral, I think is correct. Coral is, I think, how you pronounce it.
That sounds right.
Is unbelievable. I love watching this guy. He's like, he reminds me so much of a Brett Favre kind of a guy. Really cocky, and can run, can fire everybody up, can pass, has a big arm. Not a big guy. I think he's like 6'1". But I love watching him play. Just love watching his style.
Well,
And I don't think there's any doubt that Georgia's the number one team in the country.
not
The
now,
defense
no.
is just unbelievable.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll see how they like a lot of those teams. Is it, can you get over that? I mean, I know that Alabama's very vulnerable this year, but can you get over that Alabama hump? But when you're the team that's the number one team, so.
Well, here's what I said about that game after it was over. I would not want to be Nick Saban's defensive coordinator this week. And I would not want to be an Alabama football player this week.
No.
But there's no doubt in my mind that the next game they play, he'll have fixed everything, and they could run the table going into the Georgia game.
I mean,
and you still got to beat them. I mean, Georgia hasn't beaten them in quite a while.
No, they have not.
And Saban is a genius, and so we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Then if Alabama beats Georgia, does Alabama and Georgia both get in? And things would tell us yes.
If it's a relatively close game, then
they
yes.
haven't been that impressive.
No.
But they've already played Texas. It doesn't look like anybody in the Big 12 could beat them.
No.
So they could go in undefeated. So we'll have to see what happens. But they have not looked that good at all.
It's true.
And that was a very good game as well. I watched that game as well as the Ole Miss Arkansas game. And both of those games were a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
But Texas lost that as much as OU wanted. But, we now have a quarterback controversy. We went from having a Heisman hopeful to a transfer portal probable in Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, and it brought something up that I saw offline, but now that, college athletes can make money. There was a consultant come on, and again, I don't know how we vet which companies and how much you can really, speculative money. But they basically said that by not, and apparently the policy is if you're a true freshman, you don't get to talk to the media. That's the coach's policy.
Under that coach, right?
Under that coach.
Yeah.
Just that coach. So it's not like it's a NCAA rule for once. And they said that he cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars by not letting him talk after the game. That performance, along with a good interview, would have been, brands would have lined up to get a piece of him. Now looks like he's pretty good. He's a true freshman. He's already getting playing time, so I'm sure he's going to have plenty of time to make money. But it does bring up an interesting,
yeah, it does.
Moving forward.
I mean, this NIL thing, like we were talking offline, and I was talking to Michael Smith from SBJ today, and I raised the point like I raised with you is that we watch those moves like Blue Chips and everything, and we were talking about Oklahoma State and T. Boone Pickens, and if T. Boone Pickens was alive now with the NIL, I think it's conceivable that he would have spent enough money that Oklahoma State would have won a national championship because he would have just bought whatever players he needed to buy.
Yeah.
Legitimately. And so, I raised the point at a school like Kansas. And that might have been too far of a reach. But could a school like, let's say, Kentucky? Could Kentucky use NIL to get enough quality football players to win a national championship?
I think it is conceivable. I mean, obviously every team can do it now. So all the big schools, it's not like Alabama, if they weren't doing it before, they're definitely doing it now. But, I mean, if you bought 2 or 3 recruiting classes in a row where you're getting, I mean, I know it doesn't always matter, but typically, if you bought, 25-star guys, 3 drafts or 3 classes in a row, I think you'd have it, if you had a competent coach, it's hard to imagine you kind of couldn't,
Yeah. And, talking about NIL, and I'm a horse breeder in Kentucky, and I can attract you and I can give you part of a horse.
Yeah.
As part of your payment for promoting my horse track or my horse breeding society or whatever you want to call it. So I just think it's going to be interesting to watch and see if a team could be, just like in Blue Chips, you get enough people, could you do it? And I think it's conceivable. I don't know how likely it is, but it's definitely conceivable. And it's much more realistic than it was a year ago.
Oh yeah,
So something will happen. We'll have to see where it goes.
definitely. Well, I guess if we continue our good transitions and see where it goes, we have an interesting NBA story. Everybody's
Yes,
favorite
we do.
wacko, Kyrie Irving, apparently is not going to play home games this year, which means he also won't be able to play if they play Golden State. He won't be able to play if they play the Knicks,
Or the Lakers.
or the Lakers, or the Clippers.
Or the Clippers. So that's 2 games against. So it's 1 home game against the Clippers, 1 home game against the Lakers is 2.
Yeah.
1 against Golden State is 3, and 2 against the Knicks is 5, plus the 21. So that's 26 games he won't play.
Yeah.
Pending other cities not enacting the same legislation.
Right, and since we're finally making, the numbers are finally starting to look good, and I think the trend is going to continue. That people are going to continue to make you get, I know they'll never say anything because they're boys with them, but I mean, you do want to know what KD really thinks, right?
Yeah, you do.
I mean, they're on the verge of a championship in Brooklyn, which would be enormous. And they've got a stacked team. I mean, they have depth. They might be the deepest team in the NBA, even without Kyrie Irving. But obviously, if your crunch time is KD, Kyrie, and Harden, it's hard to imagine you're not getting a basket every time down the floor. So
I would agree. And it wouldn't be hard to find somebody to make a trade. But, because obviously you're going to have Kyrie's not going to get paid. So it's 41 home games.
yeah,
Plus the 3 West Coast games is 44. Plus the 2 Knicks games, which makes it 46. So he's gonna miss 46 games and play 36.
and that's assuming that he doesn't, sprain
Doesn't
an
get
ankle
hurt,
or pull a
and
hammy.
nothing else happens.
Yeah,
So do you want a guy that's only able to commit to you in your championship aspirations for 36 games? Who obviously says what he thinks is more important than the team.
yeah,
And it's not the first time that he's said or he's demonstrated that, what's important to him takes precedence over everything else. And that's not who Kevin Durant is, and that's not who James Harden is, and that's definitely not who Steve Nash is.
No, I'm sure if there was any trade value at all for Kyrie Irving that would get you, I think they would take 75 cents on the dollar at this point. But I don't think you could even get that,
Well, the one they were speculating about today was Ben Simmons.
Oh.
You got two damaged pieces.
That would be,
Would you trade one for the other?
that'd be a lot of fun,
Knowing that Kyrie could play all the home games in Philadelphia.
especially if
So now
Kyrie
what
gets
you're talking
angry.
You're talking about 2 games against the Knicks, 2 games against the Nets is 4, plus the 3 on the West Coast is 7. Now you're only talking 7 games.
But then you're talking, you're most likely going to have to go through Brooklyn in the playoffs, so you're not going to play in the 4 road games.
Yeah, you're not going to play the 4 road games in Brooklyn.
And again, if you're Brooklyn, now all of a
Let's
sudden,
say you get the Knicks in the first round, and you're not going to play in the 4 playoff games or 3 playoff games in New York.
yeah, he's obviously
I
very
don't think
opinionated.
there's anywhere else you would even contemplate this.
No. I mean, Andrew Wiggins
Cut
was
your
not.
losses and move on.
Yeah. Wiggins was not happy about getting his shot. He made it very clear, but he did get the shot so he could play in the games with the team.
Yeah.
And I just, you can't plan around Kyrie. Like at this point, even if he plays, like I feel like Kyrie would have to be like a 6th man when he comes.
Well, there's a strong team culture in Golden State
Yeah.
that starts with ownership and goes down through Steve Kerr, and that Draymond Green is all about team, and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and everything. And I'm sure that they just sent the message that you need to be in or you're not in. And I don't know if anybody, because like you said, they're all boys in Brooklyn. Maybe they're not comfortable sending that message,
No,
but they should.
they should. Or at least, show him some medical science. point out that in order to get into high school, in order to play for Duke for the one game that he played at Duke, like, he probably showed a vaccination card. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Duke would have let him in vaccination card free.
But then he wasn't the Kyrie that he is now.
No.
So he probably won't relate to it, no matter what you say to him.
Yeah.
And because everybody's letting him do what he wanted to do. He's got to do everything he's wanted to do since he's been in the NBA. He's forced trades. He's forced other players to be traded. I mean, he's good, but he hasn't won it. Hadn't won.
We won with LeBron.
He won with LeBron.
And he was...
A lot of people could say they went with LeBron.
Yeah. He was really good with LeBron, though. He was probably LeBron's best...
He was.
Co-teammate, or whatever you want to call that, in that situation. But, yeah. Well, I finished Squid Game, and it was the best show I saw all year, and I loved it.
So, for those of us that have never seen it, give me a 60-second capsule.
I mean, the part that people seem to be clinging to, which is not the right part, because people are throwing Squid Game parties. But essentially, people are poor and desperate. So they agree to take part in Squid Games to win a bunch of money. They go to the Squid Game and they learn that the result of losing the game isn't just go home with no money, it's that they kill you. And bizarrely in this Squid Game, like I said, it's very bright colored. It's it's very entertaining. But so they're able to vote to leave the Squid Game. All of them. They're just not going to take any money and go back. But then almost all of them vote to go back once they get back to their regular lives and see all the debt and see where the desolation they're living in. And they're like, well, even death would be better than living like this. So it's got a very
Okay.
relatable to America and everywhere else in the country right now, where the wealth gap keeps growing and the poor have to do whatever they do to survive. But I mean, it's a nice character piece, and you get to learn about human nature, and it's obviously very tension filled. But like I said, a lot like when people started throwing Gatsby parties, and it's like, you didn't read the book, did you? People are now having Squid Game parties, and it's sort of like, that's not really it. And
so it's real to the point, but nobody gets killed.
Oh, in Squid Game they get killed, yes. Oh, but when the party, no, people aren't killing them. But idiots are shooting each other with BB guns as a punishment, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But dumb people are going to dumb people, I guess.
Okay. Well, I finished season 2 of Ted Lasso, and I'm looking forward to season 3 next year.
Okay.
And I thought they did a very good job of, when Dan and I talked yesterday, he kind of summed it up saying that from what he's heard and what I've seen, this year wasn't as rosy and puppies and butterflies as year 1. This year 2 had a lot of realism in it. It still was an upbeat message, but there was a lot of realism. There were things that you didn't think could happen, but they did.
Yeah.
And year 2 was a lot about mental health and some other things. So I thought it was really well done. I'm looking forward to year 3.
Well, I think after season 1, which like I always said, like I feel like it's the closest the show can get to being overly corny without being corny.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would be a welcome change if they brought it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have started
There's some nice cliffhangers for season 3.
Yeah, and I have been watching another sitcom called Ghosts, which is being remade in America, but I've been watching the original BBC version on HBO Max.
Okay, this is the one that they're advertising now on CBS?
Yes.
Okay.
So the BBC show was 3 seasons, and it's all 3 seasons are available on HBO Max. But essentially, this woman inherits an old house, the Button House. She has a near-death experience, and if you died at Button House, you now live at Button House. So now it's her, and she can see and talk to all the ghosts, who kind of make her life, make her look like a wacko from time to time as she's talking to them. But it's been a nice little Halloweeny October sitcom, if you will. It's not scary, but
Okay, well, you know what? I think I might try it out just because it is October.
yeah. I don't know when the American version starts, but we've been watching.
It starts this week, I think.
Okay. And did I have a food moment? Did I? I have a pseudo food moment. I mean, everybody has already talked about it, and this probably wouldn't be your jam, but Trader Joe's makes an orange chicken. It just comes in a bag.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty tasty. Had it for lunch today. I took half the chicken out, and it's nice because you get two different sauces in the package.
Mm-hmm.
So you can split up the chicken and do it twice, and then just make a bunch of broccoli, mix it all together in a pot. You get like a nice, orange chicken dish.
How is the chicken prepared?
I
Is
prepare
it fried? Is it rotisserie? Is it grilled?
It's fried like it would be at a Chinese food restaurant.
Okay. And then the orange is a glaze.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the glaze, it comes frozen. You stick it in a glass of hot water, and then you pour it over the chicken and broccoli. I mean, you have to add your own broccoli too, or whatever vegetable is your jam. I don't want to, force people to go. Oh,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
we also went to the original buttermilk drop down here on Saturday, which makes buttermilk drops, and they were
Buttermilk
delightful.
drop biscuits?
No, buttermilk drop. It's like I guess a buttermilk donut with glaze on it, but it's a ball.
Oh, okay.
And it typically has like a crunchier outside, and like
Yeah.
a real soft cakey inside, and then glaze all over it.
And
It was really good.
did they have different flavors?
Normally they do, but the day we went, they only had one. They have filled ones. You get the jelly filled one, a lemon filled one. I think they have a dark chocolate coated one. But
Okay.
we went and they only had the original, but they were delicious. So
Okay. I don't think I had a food moment since we've been back from marathon.
yeah, it happens.
Nope, I did not.
Well,
I did not. I am going to BJ's Alabama barbecue tomorrow, though.
ooh,
And it looked really good in the pictures I've seen. I haven't been there yet. And I've probably been to 20 different barbecue places in Tampa, so this will be a new experience tomorrow.
Tampa again, surprisingly good food city, and they also have
Yeah.
some pretty good barbecue spots.
Well, I guess my food moment is, as usual, your mom made red gravy yesterday with hot sausage and meatballs, and we had fresh homemade ravioli from the Italian store. So
Nice.
that's strong. That's really good. So
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much it.
yeah, I mean, NHL opens up tomorrow night.
Baseball's still going.
Lightning going for 3. Baseball, the Braves won today. The Braves are up 2-1. The Astros and White Sox got rained out. The Rays and Red Sox play game 4 tonight,
Mm-hmm.
which I'll be watching. The Giants and Dodgers, I think, play game 3.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's been some interesting things. I mean, the Red Sox Rays series is really good. That's the one. If I'm going to watch one, that's what I'm going to watch.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great week. And hopefully have some more chatter for you next week.
Oh, we definitely will. All right.